News Radio 1290 WNBF in Binghamton now on a Monday morning, and we are pleased to welcome back to our program Michael Vasquez, candidate for Congress.
Morning, Bob. It's good to be with you and the listeners again.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Thank you. You too.
How many days till the election?
Well, we haven't had the final days put down yet. We're expecting it's going to be somewhere in September.
All right. So you're challenging Richard Hanna, and I'm laying the groundwork because although you've been on the program before, some of our listeners may not have heard you on the program. So let's just briefly lay the groundwork, set the stage, a little bit of your background and why you chose to challenge an incumbent member of Congress.
All right, thank you. Michael Vasquez. I've been a political commentator for the last 7 years. I've covered local and national news. I've spoken to most of the politicians in the southern tier, central New York, and others. And during that time, like most people in America, I've become more and more displeased with Congress. I mean, there's a reason why they had an 8% approval rating in 2013. They're not getting the job done. And they're not answering us on some of the key issues that everyone is concerned about. I mean, the most recent thing, the NSA, which President Obama was answering on Friday, sort of answering those things. And the budget, national deficit, which continues to grow. We're currently at about $17 trillion with $15 trillion in GDP, and those numbers are only going to go higher. We're looking at $22 trillion in the national debt just in 3 years. These are ridiculous numbers. We're not getting answers from Congress. That's why in April I decided to go forward and explore the opportunity to run for Congress. I spoke to people throughout the entire 22nd district, 3 hours north-south, hour and a half east-west, and I've gotten one answer back consistently from the majority of people. We need to change things. Doing business as we have been doesn't work. And so that led me to where we are today.
So some people thought that with an agreement among the leaders in Washington, the congressional leaders in the White House, to finally pass a budget, some people thought that was good news. Do you view that as good news?
Not at all. Not at all. Because one of the biggest problems, the first thing that really grabbed my attention and made me very upset that many of our congressmen just voted for it, they're taking money away from veterans. They're taking it from the pensions. Now, there's no one who's looked at the budget and what we spend money on. I think it was Chuck Grassley out of, I forget where he's out of. Iowa, thank you. Comes out with his annual report of waste. Billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars of waste in this government every year. And we're taking money away from our veterans who have volunteered to help us to have our freedoms. That's the worst place. And that's the first place they went to? I disagree with that.
When's the last time you spoke, or I can't recall if I've asked this in the past, have you had conversations with Congressman Hanna?
Back in 2010 when he was running for the 23rd District, as a member of the press, I was speaking to him. We were at a couple of events, and I spoke to him then on the campaign trail. Since that time, no. And I have tried to reach him as a member of the press prior to running, and he hasn't responded.
What do you make of that?
There's a lot of things that can be made of that. As a member of the press not responding to that, well, politicians don't like the press in general. As a constituent, I'd like to hear at least an email saying, hello, I got your email and I'm paying attention to you. But I don't know if that was a failure of his office, if that was something else, so I don't hold it against him. But I do note it as one of the concerns that I have.
In terms of Congressman Hanna's record since he became a member of the House, what's your personal assessment? What areas do you find of greatest concern as a person who intends to challenge him for the Republican nominations?
Well, there's a couple of issues that I think are very big. Just in the since the beginning of the new year, I'll talk about two things that have come up. There's the most recent issue. We just had the drones. up in the northern part of the district, they just announced that we're going to be having drone testing in New York State. And that's going to bring in, hopefully, about 2,000 jobs and $70 million. That's the estimate. Let's assume they hit those targets. That's half the job is done. We've got drones coming in as part of the FAA regulations for 2017, and yay, except they left out the biggest part. There are no rules, there are no laws that govern the way that the drones are being used. We know that since 2006, the FBI has been using drones. The DEA have been using drones. Several government agencies have them. They're using them, but they won't tell us what they did with them. Had they parked it in front of someone's living room or bedroom in the middle of the night? Because they could, and we know what the abuses of the NSA, they might. But there's no law that says they can't. And that's scary. So that means that was a job half done. We need to move forward with that. I'll give you another thing very quickly.
While we're on the drones, just
Okay.
for a second here. So are you concerned because a lot of that work is expected to be done at the former Griffiths Air Force Base in Oneida County, some work up in Syracuse, and maybe some other locations in upstate New York. So, and this is all, in theory, it's all part of the process as the FAA develops rules, which ultimately may come out within the next 2 years. But is there a concern that you have that while this drone experimentation, testing, and that sort of thing is going on, that potentially the privacy of New Yorkers will be jeopardized?
It's more than just testing. This is more than just an experiment. We know for a fact, the FBI Director, Mueller, has stated in front of Congress, they are using drones right now. They have been since 2006, according to the LA Times, and as well as the DEA and several other agencies. So we know that that's in process. And this is going to be, what they're experimenting with is, let's expand this to every agency out there. Now, when you give large parts of the government the ability to intrude on innocent people's lives, ultimate power corrupts ultimately. If we don't have any safeguard in place to say, no, you can't do that, why won't they do that? Because when we do have safeguards out there, as with the NSA, we've seen them break them. And that's a problem.
Why do you think that most members of Congress are conspicuously quiet on this issue?
It's not something that's on the top of everyone's minds yet, because no one's seen the drones. No one's noticing what's being used. And there's also the wonderful fact that, yeah, drones can be very useful. They can help in a lot of ways, helping firemen find people who are in burning houses, helping police track down criminals. So those are the positive uses, and that's the only thing they'll mention, because no one wants to address what our government sometimes does, either through error or through abuse. But if we don't prepare for that, if we don't do something to try and limit that, then what are we left with?